All right, so you're deep in the Agile world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pushing for those rapid releases, but how do you make sure you're not like sacrificing quality for speed?
Yeah, that's the constant tension, right? Speed without a solid testing strategy. It's like, building a rocket without doing any quality checks along the way.
Yeah,
You might launch quickly, but who knows where you're going to land.
exactly. And that's where I think this deep dive comes in handy.
Right.
We've got your sources on Agile testing quadrants,
Okay.
this framework by Brian Merrick. And it seems like this is the map we need
Yeah,
to navigate this tricky terrain.
definitely.
So what's the big idea here? What are we talking about when we say Agile testing quadrants?
It's all about comprehensive testing.
Yeah.
But it's more than just checking boxes.
Right.
Each of these quadrants focuses on a different dimension of quality, and it makes sure that you're not just building fast, but you're building something that lasts.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Paint me a picture.
Sure.
What do these quadrants actually look like?
So imagine a grid
Okay.
split into 4 quadrants. One axis looks at whether the tests are focused on the technology or the business side of things.
Okay.
The other separates tests that support the development process from those that critique the finished product.
Okay.
And this gives you 4 distinct quadrants.
So it's like looking at the software we're building
Exactly.
through 4 different lenses.
2 different lenses, exactly.
But why 4? Is this just like another layer of complexity that we're adding on top of Agile?
Think of it like building a house. You wouldn't just focus on the foundation, right?
Right.
You need sturdy walls, a functional roof, a comfortable interior. And each of these quadrants, it plays a similar role in software development.
Gotcha.
It contributes to a well-rounded, high-quality product.
Okay. I'm starting to see the value here. So let's zoom into those individual quadrants. What's happening in quadrant 1?
So this is where the developers really shine. Q1 is all about unit and component testing.
Okay.
It's the foundation of your software house, making sure that each brick is strong and fits perfectly with the others.
So we're talking about testing individual pieces of code at this point.
Exactly. Let's say you're building a login feature.
Okay.
In Q1, you would be testing things like password encryption, making sure that sensitive data is handled securely before it even touches your database.
Yeah.
Catching those bugs early on can save you massive headaches down the line.
Totally fix the cracks in the foundation before you build the whole house on top of it.
Exactly.
It's like preventative maintenance at the code level.
Yeah, I like that.
What about quadrant 2? What are we doing over there?
So we're shifting gears a bit here. Q2 is about functional and business-facing tests.
Okay.
So it's where developers and testers collaborate to ensure that the software behaves as expected, both from a user's perspective and from the perspective of the business itself.
So are we talking about testing like user flows here, like making sure things like the checkout process in an e-commerce site actually work as intended?
Exactly. You're making sure online orders are processed correctly, payments go through securely, and all those crucial workflows align with what the business actually needs to succeed. And this is happening throughout each sprint, keeping you on track and preventing those oops moments later on.
Okay, so we've got the foundation, we've got the structure of our house in place.
Right.
What comes next?
So now we're moving into the realm of user experience. Q3 is all about exploratory and user experience testing, which is where human intuition comes into play.
Ooh.
We're not just checking if things work, we're asking, does this feel good to use?
This is where things get interesting. I've definitely experienced my fair share of just clunky software that technically works,
Oh, yeah.
but is just a nightmare to navigate. So tell me more about how we avoid that in Q3.
Think of it like walking through a house with a fresh pair of eyes, and
Okay.
testers, UX designers, even real users are exploring the software, looking for anything that feels awkward, confusing, or just plain frustrating. You're catching those things that automated tests often miss, like subtle usability issues that can make or break a user's experience.
So it's about going beyond the checklist,
Right.
tapping into that human insight to make sure the software isn't just functional, but enjoyable to use.
Precisely. And by incorporating user feedback early and often, you're creating a more user-centric product that people will actually want to use.
Awesome. All right, we've got a solid foundation, functional features, and a user-friendly design.
Right.
What's left to cover in Q4?
So this is where we focus on the often overlooked aspects of quality, the non-functional elements that can make or break your software in the real world.
Okay.
We're talking performance, security, scalability, the stuff that ensures your house doesn't collapse under pressure.
So this is about making sure the software not only works, but works well under pressure.
Yes.
What kind of testing happens in Q4?
Think Load testing, security testing, stress testing, basically putting your software through its paces to see how it holds up.
Yeah.
Can it handle thousands of users accessing it simultaneously?
Yep.
Is it secure against attacks? This is where you catch those potential showstoppers before they become a PR nightmare.
So Q4 is like the final inspection before you move into your software house.
Right.
Making sure everything is up to code and ready for long haul. It sounds pretty crucial.
It really is. And that's where you can gain a competitive advantage. Imagine your app is the only one that doesn't crash during a big sale or a sudden spike in traffic.
Yeah.
That's the power of rigorous Q4 testing.
Okay. I'm sold on the importance of all 4 quadrants.
Good.
But how do we actually use this in practice? Our sprints are already jam-packed. How does all this testing fit in?
Yeah, well, that's the real art of Agile testing, right?
Yeah.
It's not about rigidly applying each quadrant in every sprint.
Huh?
It's about understanding which areas need the most attention based on, what you're building and where you are in the development cycle.
So it's about being flexible and adapting the quadrants to fit the specific needs of each sprint.
Exactly. Let's say you're working on an e-commerce platform, and your current sprint is all about a major redesign of the user interface.
Okay.
You might find that those frequent UI updates are breaking your automated tests in Q1 and Q2 left and right.
Yeah, that's a common pain point for sure.
Yeah, it is. So how do we avoid getting bogged down in constantly fixing broken tests?
Right. Do we just throw automation out the window?
Not necessarily, but this is where shifting some focus to Q3 becomes super valuable.
Okay.
By involving real users early on through usability testing, you can catch those UI-related bugs before they derail your entire sprint.
So it's like having a human safety net to catch the things that automation might miss, especially when things are changing really rapidly like that.
Precisely. You're balancing the efficiency of automation in Q1 and Q2 with the human insights you get from Q3,
Yeah.
ensuring that redesigned interface is both functional and user-friendly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about which quadrants we focus on.
Right.
It's also about finding the right balance between automation and manual testing.
Absolutely. Automation is great for things like regression testing and checking basic functionality, especially in Q1 and Q2.
Right.
But there are areas, especially in Q3 and Q4, where human intuition is simply irreplaceable. You can't automate user empathy or a security expert's understanding of vulnerabilities.
You mentioned security testing in Q4. It seems like that's one area where you really need that expert human eye to find those hidden weaknesses.
It's absolutely crucial, and it's something that often gets overlooked until it's too late.
Yeah.
But by proactively incorporating security testing into your sprints, you're building a culture of security from the ground up.
So we're thinking about which quadrants to prioritize.
Right.
Finding that balance between automation and manual testing.
Hmm.
What else should we keep in mind when we're applying this framework?
Well, think about how you plan your sprints before you dive into coding and testing.
Yeah.
Take some time to map your test cases to specific quadrants.
Yeah.
This ensures that you're covering all the necessary testing areas and not neglecting any crucial aspects of quality.
So it's like creating a testing checklist based on the quadrants.
Yeah.
Making sure we're not just focusing on one area while ignoring others.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and intentional with your testing strategy.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another important point, leveraging the right tools for the job.
Okay, let's talk tools. I knew this was coming.
Of course.
We've got 4 quadrants. We've got different types of testing. It seems like a whole toolbox is needed here.
There are definitely some great tools out there to help streamline your testing efforts in each quadrant.
Okay.
So for Q1 and Q2, where automation is key, you have frameworks like JUnit and TestingG for unit testing and Selenium and Cypress for UI testing.
Okay.
These help you automate those repetitive tasks and get quick feedback on your code.
And what about Q3 and Q4? Are there tools that can help with the more exploratory and human-centric aspects of testing?
For sure. For Q3, session-based test management tools can be incredibly helpful for structuring and documenting those exploratory testing sessions.
Right.
And in Q4, tools like JMeter are popular for load testing, while OWASP XAP is a great option for security testing.
It sounds like there's a whole world of tools to explore, but even with the best intentions.
Right.
And a toolbox full of gadgets, teams can still stumble.
Yeah.
Right. What are some common mistakes to avoid when working with Agile testing quadrants?
One of the biggest traps that teams fall into is ignoring Q3 and Q4.
Okay.
They get so focused on functional testing and automation that they neglect the user experience and those non-functional aspects like performance and security.
It's like focusing on whether the car runs without checking if the brakes work or if the airbags are functional.
Exactly. Neglecting those crucial elements can lead to a fragile product that might work fine in a controlled environment,
Right.
but completely falls apart in the real world, and that's a recipe for unhappy users and a damaged reputation.
So it's about remembering that quality is multifaceted.
Yes.
It's not just about functionality. It's about usability, performance, security, the whole package.
Absolutely. And another common mistake is over-relying on automation. As
Smart.
we discussed, automation is a powerful tool,
Yeah.
but it's not a replacement for human intelligence and intuition, especially in areas like user experience and security.
Yeah, you can't just automate empathy or, as security experts, understanding of vulnerabilities. It takes a human touch.
Exactly. And finally, remember that quality isn't just the responsibility of the testers, it's a team effort.
Okay, this is important.
Yeah.
We're talking about breaking down those silos between developers, testers, business stakeholders, and even end users.
Yeah.
Everyone has a role to play in delivering a high-quality product.
Absolutely. The more eyes you have on the product from different perspectives, the better. And that collaborative spirit is at the heart of Agile, isn't it?
It is, but sometimes those real-world success stories speak louder than any advice. Can you share some examples of how teams have used Agile testing quadrants to overcome challenges and build truly great software?
Of course, let's start with an e-commerce platform that was struggling with, well, exactly what we just discussed. Constant UI changes were breaking their automated tests, and they were stuck in a cycle of fixing tests instead of building new features.
Sounds painfully familiar, a classic Agile testing trap. So how did they break free from that cycle?
Well, they realized they were overly reliant on those Q1 and Q2 automated tests, and they were missing out on the crucial insights that Q3 usability testing could provide.
Right.
They needed to bring back that human element.
So they started incorporating more exploratory testing, bringing in real users to get their feedback on the redesigned interface.
Exactly, and it was a game changer. By catching those usability issues early on, before they spiraled into these complex code fixes,
Right.
they were able to maintain their rapid release cycle without sacrificing quality.
It's like they finally found that missing piece of the puzzle. They had that solid foundation of automated tests,
Yeah,
but they needed that human touch to make sure the user experience was smooth and intuitive.
absolutely. Now let's shift gears to a different scenario. Think about a fintech app where security and performance are absolutely paramount.
Right.
Their biggest fear was a security breach or a system crash that could damage their reputation and cost them millions.
High stakes. So how did they navigate that minefield? Did Agile testing quadrants help them mitigate those risks?
Absolutely. They recognized the critical importance of Q4 non-functional testing.
Okay.
They implemented rigorous penetration testing to uncover and address those hidden security vulnerabilities. And they conducted load testing to ensure that their system could handle those peak traffic loads, like during a major market event.
So they were being proactive, anticipating those potential problems before they could wreak havoc in the real world. It sounds like that peace of mind alone is worth its weight in gold.
It is, and by integrating those Q4 tests into their regular sprints, they built a culture of security and performance awareness throughout their development process. It wasn't just a checkbox. It was woven into the fabric of how they built software.
I like that. Okay, one last example before we wrap up. What about a company struggling with user experience? It seems like that's a common challenge, even in the Agile world.
Definitely. Let's imagine a SaaS company that was getting hammered with negative feedback about their product.
Right.
Customers found it clunky and difficult to use, and their churn rate was through the roof.
Ouch, that's a tough spot to be in. So how did they turn things around? Was it another case of neglecting a certain quadrant?
They realized they had underestimated the importance of Q3 testing.
Okay.
They hadn't involved real users in the design and testing process nearly enough. They were building in a vacuum.
So they decided to open the doors, invite users in, and actually listen to their feedback.
Precisely. They started conducting user interviews, usability testing sessions, really digging deep into what was working and what wasn't, and that direct feedback was invaluable. It helped them identify those pain points and make targeted improvements to the user interface and the overall user experience.
And by embracing Q3, they were able to shift their product from a source of frustration to a delight for their customers. It sounds like a complete transformation.
It really was, and it highlights how agile testing quadrants aren't just about finding bugs. They're about building better software that meets the needs of real users and drives business success.
So it's not about rigidly following a set of rules. It's about adapting this framework
Yeah.
to your unique context and using it as a guide to ensure comprehensive and effective testing. We've got to be flexible, just like with Agile itself.
Exactly. And as you continue your agile journey, remember those 4 quadrants. They're a powerful tool for navigating the complexities of building high-quality software in a fast-paced world.
All right, one last thought to leave our listeners with. As you look at your current project, what aspects might benefit most from a deep dive within a specific quadrant? Are you overlooking potential usability issues? Could your security be stronger? Or perhaps you're missing opportunities to automate and streamline your testing efforts?
The answers to those questions will guide you toward a more balanced and effective testing strategy, one that leads to higher quality software and greater success for you and your team.